Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Good morning also to those of you tuned in via various media. Let me acknowledge the Honorable Roosevelt Scarrett, the Honorable Cozier Frederick, the Honorable Octavia Alfred, and the Honorable Greta Roberts, as well as the PS in the Office of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Missy Henderson. The Prime Minister will now address you on a number of matters and then take your questions. Prime Minister.
Good morning to the media, and good morning to the general public. Again, thanks for being present at this press conference. I want to thank you for coming. As always, I welcome this opportunity to engage with you, the members of the media and the public, on matters of state, and to take your questions on the issues you deem important. First, I will speak on the passing of our former Speaker, Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, so Speaker Emerita. I wish to take a moment to reflect on the life of Honorable Alex Boyd Knight, who passed away on Tuesday. Alex Boyd Knight was a distinguished Dominican attorney and women and children's rights advocate who served as Speaker of the House of Assembly from 2000 to 2020 when she was named Speaker Emerita. During a long tenure as Speaker of the House of Assembly, she executed her duties with passion and dedication. She was firm and no nonsense, and insisted on upholding strict parliamentary procedures and the rules of the House. Her approach to leadership in the House and as chairman of the Parliamentary Women's Association served as a sound example for women seeking to fill similar leadership roles. Speaker Boyd Knight devoted much of her life's work to the defense of women's rights and the protection of children in our society. She advocated with this government over many years for the strengthening of the laws pertaining to domestic violence, child maintenance, and the status of our children. And I dare say she was very successful in this endeavor. And I'm happy that we were able to bring 5 family protection laws to the Parliament during her lifetime in April 2023. As Prime Minister, I held her in the highest regard personally and professionally. As political leader of the Dominica Labour Party, she was a valued colleague and counselor, not only to the party, but to myself as party leader. I treasured her sound advice on political matters, and I'm thankful for her support of me and my colleagues over many years. I extend most heartfelt condolences to her family, her children, and her grandson, Senator Honorable Philip Rowe, who now serves as Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly. As a former Speaker of the House of Assembly, Honorable Alex Boyd Knight will be accorded a state funeral, and I am departing from the norm because of the high regard and her contribution to the country for over 20 years as Speaker of the House of Assembly. The Government of Dominica will provide further details on these arrangements at a subsequent date. May her soul and the souls of all the faithfully departed rest in peace. Now, I want to speak on the matter of the presidency of the Commonwealth of Dominica. The term of the office of the current president, His Excellency Charles Angelo Savarin, is due to expire on October 1, 2023. According to Section 19 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica, the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition are required to, within 90 days before the term of office of President expires, consult with a view to agreeing upon a joint qualified nominee as a suitable candidate for election as President. In the event a nominee is agreed upon, the process is straightforward, and the Prime Minister is required to notify the Speaker in writing of the joint nomination. The Speaker must then summon a sitting of the House, at which he must notify the House of the nomination and declare the nominee duly elected without requiring a vote. However, if we are unable to agree on a joint nominee, that is to say the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, other members of the House of Assembly are permitted to submit nominees for election to the office of President, and an election comprising those nominees will take place. In keeping with these requirements set out in the law, I am pleased to announce that in my capacity as Prime Minister, I have consulted with the leader of the opposition, Honorable Jasper Paul, on my nominee for the office of President of the Commonwealth of Dominica. I wish to inform the country that I have nominated Mrs. Sylvanie Burton as a candidate of the election of President of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Ms. Burton, 58 years old of age, is from Salibia, Canalago Territory, and has served as permanent secretary in various ministries since 2014. She was permanent secretary in the Ministries of Community Development, Foreign Affairs, Youth Development and Social Services, and Trade, and is currently the permanent secretary in the Ministry of the Environment, Rural Modernization, Kalinago Upliftment, and Constituency Empowerment. Mrs. Burton is a former development officer in the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs and was district development officer for many years. She has been a justice of the peace for 25 years and has served as lay associate in the Roman Catholic Church for over 20 years. She holds a master's degree in project management and a bachelor's degree in rural development. Mrs. Sylvanie Burton is married with 2 children and resides in the Canalago Territory, the Commonwealth of Dominica. So I wish to congratulate Mrs. Burton. First female president and first indigenous president in Dominica, of course. As you know, since 2004, Dominica has, are you saying, Kala, you suspected that nominee?
I bring that before
You will be for me.
I stole it from
You stood, as you know, since 2004, Dominica has enjoyed a cordial and mutually beneficial relationship with the People's Republic of China. We have seen the tangible results of this long-standing friendship. I can point to invaluable assistance to advance the agricultural sector, restore key infrastructure after disasters, enhance health facilities, and construct all-important sports infrastructure. In the coming weeks, we will break ground for the construction of the Goodwill Secondary School on September 6th. We will break ground for the construction of the new Goodwill Secondary School, which will be built with funding from China. Contracts have been signed for the construction of the Kalibishi, Sineku, Tetmon, Belvishope, and the Tibo Primary School. Now I am pleased to announce that the People's Republic of China has pledged a further grant of US $20 million to support Dominica. This assistance comes at a time when countries the world over are experiencing unprecedented stresses to their economies. Here in Dominica, we are certainly not immune to external economic shocks and the lingering effects of natural disasters and also COVID-19. We are therefore most grateful for this support from the People's Republic of China. The government of Dominica intends to direct these funds exclusively to the advancement of sports and youth development. In the coming weeks, I will outline a few plans to support youth enterprise and to continue efforts to advance sports and develop the aptitude of our young people in various disciplines. So the entire US $20 million, which is equivalent to EC $52 million, will go to sports and youth development in Dominica. And this will include, I suspect, the synthetic track in Portsmouth and the indoor sports facility, among other things. I wish to thank Ambassador Lin and the team at the Embassy of the People's Republic of China for their continued support. I look forward to building on our already solid relations with China for the benefit of both of our peoples. I wish to take a moment to comment briefly on the ongoing consultations on electoral reform. I am pleased that the government has created the opportunity for such a wide cross-section of Dominican populace to express their views on the Sir Dennis Byron report. I think it is important to note that the consultations have provided a platform for ordinary Dominican citizens to share their views on this matter of updating and modernizing our electoral processes. We have heard from the same political voices on both sides over many years. I believe the consultations have given us a broader impression of the views of the Dominican people. This, I think, enhances the process and ensures that at the end of the exercise, we will have a full picture of the opinions of the people, allowing us to bring appropriate legislation to Parliament, which truly reflects and captures the desires of the voting population. And in response to some comments which I have heard from certain speakers at the consultation, let me reiterate once again. I, Roosevelt Skerrit, the Prime Minister of Dominica, and the leader of the Dominica Labour Party, want electoral reform. And I want it to happen quickly. So let us not be in any doubt whatsoever on this matter. The government of Dominica is committed to electoral reform and instituting the laws which will continue to facilitate a free and fair process. I think we have demonstrated this commitment in no uncertain terms with the engagement of Sir Dennis Byron to thoroughly review our voting systems and with these ongoing consultations to review his recommendations. I look forward to the completion of this process and the tabling of the relevant legislation in the Parliament for approval. The consultations wind up tomorrow evening with a second session for Dominicans living in the diaspora. And I invite all of you who have not yet done so to access the Zoom link to make your contributions. This evening, the team moves to Salibia in the Canago territory. And we begin at what time? 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock. And it is by sheer coincidence, or the making of laws, decisions, that we are going to the Canago territory tonight. I do hope that we can focus on the consultation and not on this historic news of the selection of a Kalinago lady who is so qualified to carry the functions of President of Dominica. Let me also urge every one of us who is interested in advancing the issue of electoral reform to also submit your recommendations in writing. In writing. You have been asked to do so. You have had copies of the document since June. Please submit your recommendations in writing. Let me again take this opportunity to thank all those who have facilitated the process, and more importantly, all of you who have participated. And we have seen people who have spoken at every one of those venues. And I certainly look forward to their being in the Carnival territory tonight as well. And I may very well share some of my views in the Carnival territory on the electoral reform tonight, as I will attend. I will end here because I know that you may have some eager questions to ask me. And so thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Why are you so eager, John Baptist? Just a note that the email to send those recommendations and comments to is capsec@dominica.gov.dm, cabsec@dominica.gov.dm. Okay, now we will take your questions for the Honorable Prime Minister. Kalai was already on his feet. Let's hear you, Mr. John Baptist.
Okay, this question is coming from a colleague in the region who states that asked the Prime Minister to confirm that CARICOM leaders will be meeting virtually in Haiti next week and what he expects the outcome to be.
We will meet virtually as CARICOM heads. The main item on the agenda will be Haiti and the situation in Haiti. As you know, the Security Council had mandated the Secretary General of the United Nations to make certain proposals to the Security Council on what actions need to be taken, what support Haiti needs to restore the security in Haiti and to ensure that the Haitian people can go about their daily lives like every one of us in the region. And so, as you know, CARICOM for some months now appointed an eminent group of people led by the former Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Dr. Kenny Anthony, and includes the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Honorable Bruce Golding, and the former Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Honorable Perry Christie. So these three people formed that group, and they've been engaging a wide cross-section of the Haitian population, representative groups. They've also been having discussions with the UN as well and other stakeholders in the United States and Canada. And so we are looking to further coordinate our efforts because we of the view, and we accept that view and that mandate, that CARICOM is going to have to play a very crucial role in coordinating global efforts towards providing Haiti the support that it needs. And so we'll be meeting to take stock of what has transpired thus far and to receive a report from the group led by Dr. Anthony and to further determine what other actions that the CARICOM would need to take to provide support to Haiti. As you know, Kenya has indicated its commitment to providing troops or police officers, and there are a couple of other African countries have indicated that as well. There are some countries within CARICOM who have indicated that they will provide police personnel. We in Dominica are prepared to provide, as we discussed with other international stakeholders, provide some support, especially with regards to translators, as we did before when the earthquake and the hurricanes affected Haiti. There were several police officers who were sent, and some were sent with and others were sent for the translation purposes. So we're prepared to provide the support. So it's ready to get an update where we are, to look at the moving parts, and to determine what additional support we will need to provide to the Haitian people. So this is the main item on the agenda. Of course, the issue of climate change continues to remain fixed on our agenda, and so we look forward to the engagement of CARICOM heads on this issue of Haiti and other issues. For me as chairman of the Conference of Heads, I have indicated very sincerely that the Haitian situation is my #1 priority. We owe it to the Haitian people, and it's important that the entire Caribbean community, not only heads of government, but the entire Caribbean community is engaged and be seized of the issues confronting Haiti, and for us to collectively provide that moral, collective commitment and support to Haiti. And we have to guard against any semblance or any attitudes of Haiti fatigue from various quarters around the world. Of course, we're in touch with members of the Security Council, because at the end of the day, it is the Security Council that's going to make a determination as to what kind of support the United Nations can provide. And many of the countries who want to provide support, but who would want to have a UN security decision, council decision or UN decision, to provide them with the necessary legal cover of being present in Haiti. So we're pushing on this, and we'll certainly, after the conference, we'll be able to provide the public with some of the outcomes of those discussions on Haiti. Sure.
Prime Minister, good morning to you.
Yes, sir. Morning.
This is Matthew from DBS Radio. Just want to go back to the consultation you had with the leader of the opposition on the presidency. You said that you are consulted, but you've not said whether in fact the opposition leader is supporting your nominee. Can you explain whether in fact she's supporting your nominee for president? And the other question is, having followed the reform consultations, electoral reform consultations around the island, one gets the impression that Dominicans seem divided on what sort of measures that the country should implement going forward. Do you think with that situation you will be ready for Parliament, going to Parliament with these laws, let's say by the start of this year, start of next year, 2024? Thank you very much.
With regards to your first question on my consultation with the leader of the opposition on my nominee for president, obviously I met her. We have set a tentative date for Parliament to be the 12th of September. So I'm hoping to hear from her before this date, so that the Speaker can be appropriately informed of whether there's a joint nominee or there's not a joint nominee. So I will allow for some time for her to form her position on the government's nominee. And as I've said to her, whether it is yes or it's no, then either one is fine. But it will always be better to get a joint nominee presented. But that will not hold back the process. But certainly, I look forward to hearing from her soon, and very importantly, for her to say, Prime Minister, I agree with your nominee. I'm prepared to sign a joint letter to the Speaker, so that on the 12th we would have declared a president for Dominica to succeed His Excellency Charles Taylor. The issue of the consultation, and there appears to be a division among Dominican public. Division doesn't mean it's 50-50 or it's 60-40. It can be 99-1 and 95-5. So division is relative, and you expect that. So it's not nothing that is not expected. I believe that it's important that those of us who engage in the consultation do so with a profound sense of sincerity, and our sincere desire to really come to some kind of compromise and understanding of what we need to implement insofar as electoral reform is concerned in Dominica. You know, I heard, for example, last night, even if I was not physically present, I do follow. And the only times I've missed it because I was out of the country. I came back last evening, so I couldn't have made it. And I'll be in the Carnival territory tonight, as I said. The people who are making certain statements, but none of which are, they're saying that people are speaking not in reference to the report, but they themselves are speaking with no reference to the report. You know what I'm saying? There are people who are saying that it is political. I mean, anybody is free to express themselves how they wish. And so even if somebody were to give somebody a note and they say, these are the points we're interested in, I see nothing wrong with that. Because what I've heard, the same people reading, I've heard other people read the same thing, verbatim. And it can't be coincidence that you happen to have the same notes, the same words, the same comma, and the same exclamation mark in the same place. And it wasn't an exam where I would say you copy from the person. It would mean that the person shared with you a document. So that's not that's normal, that's expected, and so forth. Yeah. But people must not keep. If you shift in the goalpost, it must be to arrive at a compromise. So I'll tell you, for example, in my personal view, which I've tried not to share, because anytime I share a personal view, it will always naturally and quite rightly so be construed as the Prime Minister's view or the leader and the leader of the Labour Party's view. So I'll give you a classic example. I was very firm on the issue of a national ID card. Very firm on this. Because I believe that it is a waste of state resources to give somebody a card to vote just on election day. You understand? But I moved away from this firm position in an effort to arrive at a compromise. And so if there is the contentious view that it should be a voter ID card, then I support a voter ID card. Which means I support an ID card. What I've always said to the public, see, a lot of people talk about these things, when they talk about this, they simply throw things out in the air without looking at the implementation of what they throw in the air, the practicality of what they throw into the air. You understand what I'm saying? And so I am prepared to move away from my firm position a couple of years ago of a national ID card, and today I'm supporting a voter ID card if that's what it is. We have to look at the mechanics of it. Understand? Mechanics of it. And if people are talking about best practices, we have to also look at countries where they require a voter ID card and what other ID cards that you can use. So there, some will make reference to Antigua because that advances their position. That's fine. But St. Lucia is 30 minutes away from Dominica as well. Look at what happens in St. Lucia. You understand? You go to the Bahamas and you'll see what options in Bahamas in terms of the number of identification cards that you can use or documents that you can use. Do your own research and look at what the state of Florida requires of you as an identification card. And if we're talking about, if we always have the view in the education that we receive, that America is the bastion of democracy. And so if we're making reference to if we're looking at the bastion of democracy and where we can learn from, we should really be looking at the United States. And so go to the state of Florida. Do you understand? I won't tell you what it is. And look at the number of ID cards that you require. Either one. And if you have no photo ID card in your person at a particular time, what are the two documents you could use to vote in the state of Florida? So I'm not opposed. Then there's the issue of campaign financing. I support campaign financing from an aspirational standpoint. Yes, we should have some kind of legislation that deals with it. All I have said in the public domain is that we need to look at what Sir Dennis Byron has suggested. And I believe that what Sir Dennis Byron has suggested, there is an incompleteness of thought, because there are a number of other things that one has to put into place for what Sir Dennis Byron has suggested to make sense. As it is now in Dominica, a political party has no legal personality. The only time a political party comes into play is that on election day, for anybody to use the symbol of Dominica Labour Party, myself as leader must write to the chief election officer, authorizing that person to use our symbol. That's the only consideration. The Constitution doesn't recognize a political party. It recognizes associations and so forth in terms of you're free to associate, but it doesn't recognize a political party. Now, when you look at the law that Sir Dennis Byron has suggested, he's suggesting that every political party must have an executive officer. Shall have an executive officer. Somebody has to pay that salary. Who's going to pay the salary? Then it says not only after election that you're to submit audited financial statements every year. At the end of April, every year, every political party must submit financial statements. Now, you're going to need to have staff to take proper records. And let me tell you something further, Mr. Matthew. If a party or a candidate hires a bus, because they're suggesting the maximum or the minimum rather you have to request invoices and queries is $500 EC. So if you hire a bus to transport people to a meeting, that bus driver must give you a receipt. He must provide you an invoice, must give you a receipt. If a political party or a candidate has a function and you do some catering, some finger foods and some drinks, when you go to any of the supermarkets, you have to now search for the receipt. All of us throw a receipt away, but you have to keep that receipt, because it has to form part of the audited statements. So all I'm saying is that what Sir Dennis Byron is suggesting will make it very difficult, if not impossible, for many political parties, and especially independent candidates. And so, from an aspirational standpoint, yes, we should be discussing electoral reform, campaign financing. But you should ask yourself, why is it that in many of the Commonwealth countries and in many countries around the world, you do not have such legislation? Because of the complexity of it and the high technical nature of it. And even the Electoral Commission is going to need to have a serious level of staffing to provide the oversight for this thing if it's going to be implemented. So I don't have the luxury as some people to come and just pontificate. I have to think much more profoundly than most on these matters. Because at the end of the day, it is left to me, unfortunately, as the leader of the House and the chairman of the cabinet to decide to take this into Parliament. And therefore I have to think much more profoundly than many people in the country on this matter. You understand? And that's what we have to preoccupy ourselves with. So we need to set aside the little partisanships that exist and look at this thing more robustly and more sincerely if we're to arrive at some sensible compromise and so on. And the issue of constitutional amendments, I believe that should be for a second round in respect to amendments to the Constitution. Because if we have to go the route of the amendment to the Constitution, even if it allows for a two-thirds majority to allow for the constitutional amendment, and we do have more than two-thirds in the Parliament, on any constitutional amendment, I would not want us to go and just make the amendments like this. We would have to go and engage in consultations as well, and this could take some time. So let us have a second round of those discussions, as we've indicated before, and so forth. So at the end of the day, yes, the Treasury must provide political parties and candidates with some level of funding each year to meet its operational expenses. Because if the parliament is going to impose upon the political parties that you're placing a limit on your ability to raise funds, and at the same token you're imposing on the parties a burden, then you have to provide them with the support to run their campaigns. In the United States, I mean, a political party is a major institution. I mean, the Republican and Democratic Party, these are major institutions. I mean, this thing, the Democratic Party in the UN and the Republican Party or the Conservative Party, Labour Party, these are major, you know what's in the headquarters? I mean, you see the party headquarters, and in every state they have a presence, and I mean, and they have all of the PACs that can give them monies and that they don't have to account for. And if in the United States, yes, there's legislation, but they themselves have been battling with the legislation itself. That's why they start to improve it or make changes to it, and it hasn't worked. Then you have the issue of the Treasury. Does provide the United States for the Treasury to provide financing to political parties. If you choose not to accept the fund, then you are free to raise as much money as you want. So this is the kind of engagement I would like to see people having. Not just throwing stuff there and throwing this stuff there. And then we talk about virtual constituencies. The Constitution speaks about a geographical location and boundary. How are we going to define that virtual constituency? Where will be the polling stations? Will they be allowed to come to Dominica to vote, or you set up polling station on the absentee voting? Who will be the representative? How will they attend Parliament? Will there be a Zoom link so they can attend Parliament, or will they be required to come to Dominica to Parliament? And who's going to pay for the airline tickets in the hotel when they come? So I'm saying that let us not try to put spokes in the wheel and to throw the fundamental aspects of electoral reform off the window. What is it talk about virtual constituencies? And unfortunately, this is coming from lawyers. If you say that, then say, well, you know, the Constitution says this. I know the geographical locations. We have to amend this and this. So I'm saying that there has to be a greater display, in my view, of sincerity. So yeah, I have remained quiet on this matter, and rightly so. I believe if I speak, I can provide guidance to the country on these issues. So I try not to speak for. I don't want the debate to be about me. I want it to be about the Sir Dennis Barron report. But I have taken the time, and I've read every single word in the documents presented by Sir Dennis Barron. And I have scribbled notes on the margins, I've underlined stuff, I have inserted stuff, a number of things I've done in the legislation and the report. There's something I don't agree with, and I've said so publicly, and there's some things I agree with, I've said so publicly. It's not my report, it's Sir Dennis Barron's report. He presented it to us because the document bears the name of Sir Dennis Barron. As a matter of fact, I'm sure he would have placed this already on his CV. You see what I'm saying? So it's not my report at all. So this is the kind of discussion that we were to have, and so on and so forth. But in terms of electoral reform, I want this thing so badly. You understand? So badly. But I have no intention or reason to play politics with this. None whatsoever. So that's my précis response to you. We could spend a few hours talking about this item by item, but time doesn't allow me. Yes, ma'am.
Prime Minister, before when will you give an honest, what I say, what would you speak to your views on the consultation?
Well, I've just done some of this. Yeah. Maybe after the consultation. I said I do not want people to scare it say, or scare it didn't say. I try to avoid this. I let people to freely express their views. You know, I was giving you my personal view on some of the things that Curtis has raised and some of the things I've heard in the consultation. I heard last night people saying it's the Labour Party that do not want consultation. I speak on behalf of the Labour Party. I can tell, and there's one leader in the Labour Party as opposed to other political parties. And I'm the only one who is resident in Dominica as a political party leader. So I'm a virtual leader. You know what I'm saying? But I will tell you, honestly, Matt, that part of the motivation of Mr. Linton and Mr. Edison James on this move to remove overseas voters is really targeting Thompson Fountain, you know. They want to find a way, because Thompson's not moving nowhere. They want to find a way to disqualify Thompson. Let's be honest. Let me be honest, Matt. And I'm sure you agree with me, because I know when you agree with me. Because we've been around for a long time. You know, we've been around since 1999, Rosie. You know, we used to travel together, all these things. You know what I mean? And Carlisle. So they want to find a way of disqualifying Dr. Thompson Fountain by removing him on the voters list. If he is not on the voters list, he cannot be the leader of the party. I know that there's pressure on him, and there's a group within the faction within the United West Party that is calling for his resignation because he remains in South Sudan working. And he's been resisting that. I'm going to find a way of removing, disqualifying him. And I'm sure that the whole country knows that. And so forth. So I think that is it. So, but that should not be a consideration. You see, we should look at this thing from a national standpoint and not targeting individuals. But let's focus it on a national stage. What is good for Dominica? You understand? What is good for Dominica? Because everybody's watching us and looking out for the outcome of those consultations. And this is why people are saying that they've never seen that level of consultation in the region. People can come and say what they want. I mean, people even defaming people at these consultations. I mean, making all sorts of baseless, unfounded allegations, but it's okay. Let's go ahead, talk. You understand? Mr. Linton has spoken in the State House. He spoke in Wesley. He spoke at the parish hall, and he spoke in Marigot. I suspect he might want to come to Kalinago territory. You see what I'm saying? Well, Mr. Linton spoke in Marigot last night. Yeah. No, the parish hall. Mr. Edison James, State House. Wesley, Marigot as well. So, I mean, and these are the two main spokespersons of the United West Party. So, I mean, and they speak, I mean, the fellas talk here. But it's all good. And I believe that the moderator and others should allow him to speak. Everybody should be allowed to speak and to share their views as how they see it. These are their views. I am not necessarily agreeing with them, but these are the views nonetheless, and we respect it. And we respect the views. Not accepting, but we respect the views. And that is what. And therefore, if somebody who appears to be a supporter of the Labour Party is speaking, then we should also respect the person's views, because that person is a Dominican. There's no Dominican who is more important than anyone else. There's no Dominican that is more important than, and there's no Dominican who is more important than me. We all in this are the same level. All. And we all have a right to speak as freely as we wish, irrespective of your station in life. The point is you're a Dominican. That's the only qualification that's required. I mean, in the consultation of good, I even saw a foreigner there. You know. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Prime Minister, you spoke on the relationship with China. At the Caribbean, China's consultation held recently, the Assistant Minister called for Caribbean nations to stamp down against what Japan is doing, the release of the radioactive water into the ocean. They're saying that it will have a negative impact on Caribbean states. As the leader of the country and Dominica being a nature island, would you care to comment on such? I have some more questions. I'm not sure if I should just go ahead. Okay. I also have a question, Prime Minister. In the United States presently, And in the UK, and other parts of the world, sorry, there has been a surge in COVID-19 cases. As we understand, there is a new variant. I would like to find out if the government of Dominica is at all concerned about this new variant, and if we're taking any steps presently to ensure that with the festival coming, that this variant does not enter the island. My quick question, will be on Dominica. Government of Dominica has the majority shares in Dominica, and we heard from Mr. Stamp sometime last week that the company is currently having capacity issues and they're having issues with their generation. As a majority shareholder, does the government of Dominica, intend to step in and to assist the company? And my final question would be some welcoming news from the U.S. State Department. We heard that they're considering 2 Eastern Caribbean countries to open a U.S. embassy. Antigua and Barbuda has already allocated land. St. Lucia is already taking steps in hopes that they are selected. Any steps the government of Dominica is taking in the event that they are selected?
Thank you for 4 questions. With regards to the dumping of waste in the oceans, we've been engaging the government of Japan on this, as well as other international parties, to get the concrete facts on this. It's been going on for some weeks now, and to get reassurances from the government of Japan on this matter. And so it's an engagement we'll continue to have. We understand the concerns that countries like China have, and we ourselves as ocean people, and our firm commitment to preserving and protecting marine life is something that will be of interest to us. But in these matters, we would prefer have conversations and not to make any prejudicial comment or statement in the public domain on these matters. So we're getting the facts of this matter. We're engaging the government of Japan and other parties in respect to this matter. Okay, the issue of COVID-19, though the WHO declared some months ago that COVID-19 is over and so forth, and the world has basically gone back to its normal behaviors. We in the Ministry of Health in the government have always continued to advise our residents and citizens to continue practicing good hygienic practices, protocols, the washing of hands and sanitizing and respiratory etiquette and so forth. So the epidemiologist is monitoring the situation very closely, I can tell you. He has never stopped. He's always monitoring not only local trends, but international trends as well. And it is something that we have to be aware of and mindful of. And we will continue to provide the public with the necessary information and education that we need.